See now, a true cowboy knows about statistics. And Pistol Pete here, he loves statistics, and he's here to help us with some statistics songs, alright? So, Pistol Pete, what would you say about a student who admits that they just absolutely love statistics? He's going to tell us his answer. I know you've all been anxious to see how Pistol Pete says things. He says they're normal. It is perfectly normal to love statistics. That is right. Okay, now, what would you say if there was a student at a game who was cheering for CSU? What would you say? Oh, he says they're mean. All right, well, yeah, that counts. Okay. Now, how do you feel about the upcoming game? What do you think are the Cowboys' chances? Here we go. It's exciting. He feels confident. He's confident about our game. That is awesome. Go Pistol Pete. Woo! All right. So our goal is to set up an experiment. And the experiment that we're going to talk about is what would happen if you had a crowd set up to either see Pistol Pete and they're going to cheer, or maybe a crowd where they're not going to see Pistol Pete and they're going to cheer. And the question we want to ask is, does the presence of Pistol Pete make the volume of the crowd louder? So if we're going to design an experiment, let's talk about a couple of terms that are very helpful. First, randomization. Imagine what would happen if the crowd cheering for Cowboy Joe were all athletes and the crowd without Cowboy Joe were all stat students. Would it matter? Would it make a difference? I don't know, but you've left that question open unless you do good randomization. Next is blocking. Blocking's tricky. Blocking says I'm not just going to randomize between the two groups, but I'm especially going to randomize certain aspects. For instance, you would say, I'm going to take all the athletes. Half the athletes go in the group with Cowboy Joe, half the athletes go without Cowboy Joe. That's not complete randomization, but what it does is it makes sure that if you believe athletes versus stat students are important, that you've got some in each group. So blocking works with a group you've already selected for randomization. We split them according to some criteria. Are you a stat student or not? And then each of those groups is split into the treatment or the control or whatever other group. A famous example of blocking often happens when we're talking about diets. We're going to have a whole group and we're going to experiment on Atkins diet and not Atkins diet. Well, we might take the men and split half the men in Atkins, half not. We might take the women, half the women in Atkins diet, half not. That's called blocking on gender. That could matter. You might take the adults and the children, half the adults in Atkins and not, and half the children on, I'm not sure if it's a good idea to put half the children on Atkins. Let's delete that. With Atkins diet is you don't get to eat donuts.
I don't want to do Atkins diet.
The next term is placebo. Placebo is when people can't tell whether they're getting the medicine or not because they're getting something that is similar to the medicine. With Cowboy Joe, that would be tricky. We'd have to have a crowd with Cowboy Joe and a crowd with something like Cowboy Joe but not Cowboy Joe. And since he's an image, I really don't know how you would actually do that. But placebo is often used in medical studies. We'll give you this pill and we'll give you another pill that actually doesn't do anything, but you don't know that. And that way we can test whether the medicine is actually working. It's a way of accounting for a lurking variable called the power of the human mind. If you think you're supposed to get better, it'll actually help you a lot. There's a famous study where they did knee surgery and half the patients actually got knee surgery. The other half they cut open and just sewed back the knee without actually fixing anything. And what they found was a big p-value, meaning that the power of thinking their knee was going to be better. Let me tell you of an important placebo any parent really ought to know. Because if you ever have children who are hurt in any way,
ow!
Here, this will make you feel better.
Yummy!
Parenting 101. The goal of a placebo is to make it possible to do blinding. Blinding is where people don't know if they got the treatment or not. Knowing that you're receiving treatment can affect how you behave to that treatment. And double blind is very similar. Double blind is where not even the doctor knows which treatment he's giving you. With surgery, that wouldn't exactly be realistic. With Cowboy Joe, I can't think of how that'd be realistic. But imagine some pill and this is potentially a pill that could cure cancer, a big deal. And if the doctor knows that they're giving you a placebo, they might treat you differently. Or if they know they're giving you this new miracle cure, they might react differently to that. So blinding helps get rid of that lurking variable called I know I'm being treated. The last experimental term you need to know is control. A control group is a group that doesn't get any treatment. So you can imagine if there's 5 different medicines and we want to know which one's better, it might be valuable to know what would happen with no medicine so that you can rank how much each of these are helping. For the Cowboy Joe example, the control would be the crowd that has no mascot. How much do they cheer? And then we could have Cowboy Joe and Cowgirl Jane. There's like 4 mascots, aren't there? But we could have one for each crowd, and then we can rank how much do they cause the crowd to cheer above the control, which is no mascot. Do you think they're going to notice that the board changed?